marketing messages. So my aim for tonight is to kind of highlight some of the claims that manufacturers make that maybe either don't mean anything or are maybe hiding some things that you thought that you were avoiding. And also I wanted to deal with some marketing messages about nutrition and some about humane handling of animals, because I know that that is a big concern these days, and marketing companies have really listened to that. So when it comes to prioritizing buying free range and cage-free eggs, I think, you know, most people these days are concerned about those things. However, you may not be getting what you thought that you were getting. So we're going to cover that as well today. So we've got a few, here we go, here's my screen. So we've got a few food labels here on display that are very popular food labels. And actually, when I went to Google a picture of these today, I could find lots of stock pictures that you can bring into your own stuff for marketing as well. So it goes to show how widely these things are utilized. Now we're going to cover a lot of these labels during this presentation. So sit tight and hang on. So I've got this little...
Marty, terrible news. There's nothing special about the milk I'm putting on the market. It's slightly translucent white liquid like all the rest, but this is a disaster for sales. Marty, are you listening? My milk, Marty.
George, calm down. Your milk is GMO free.
But all milk is GMO free.
You know it, and I know it, but no one else does. So here's the plan. We're gonna put a label on it. GMO free.
But GMOs are totally safe.
George, so simple, so naive. Come, let me take you to a magical place.
Where are we?
The grocery store, the most confusing place in the world. It's where I come to relax.
GMO free? None of these other milks say that.
Me, I'd rather drink milk that's GMO free than milk that's not GMO free.
Okay.
You have a great day. I can't believe that worked. Hey, if consumers didn't want us to bend the truth about what's in their food, then they should have,
Should have what?
come with me.
No. Let's get these. They say all natural. That means they're healthy.
They're potato chips. They can't be healthy.
Well, read the label. We're not supposed to lie.
Technically, it's not lying. Potatoes are healthy. Naturally. You simply bombard the consumer with meaningless claims.
Until they're too confused and frustrated to make an informed decision.
And then...
Ooh. Profit!
Contains only the really real good stuff. What does that even mean?
This is too confusing, okay? I give up.
But I'm hungry.
Hey, want a cookie? They're the new superfood.
Yummy!
Okay. I'm not sure how good a quality that was for you. And there are some problems with that. Actually, when I was looking for material for today, I came across an education website which was about food labels, sponsored by Monsanto, which is one of the biggest suppliers of genetically modified grains in the world. And that actually came from their education pack. So the whole claim that they made about GMOs not being unhealthy is also disputed, right? So, but I thought it's quite a poignant little film, because it does show exactly what is going on. We're completely confused about what's healthy, what's not healthy, and when you can make claims like all natural and people relate that to being healthy, then yeah, we get in a bit of a dangerous situation then, right? Because you can claim a lot of things about a lot of different products without having to actually have any basis towards that. So there are three different health halos that we have. There are nutritional claims, then there are health claims, and then there are humane concerns. So nutritional claims are, you know, a lot of the things like organic, like all natural, like, you know, gluten-free, that kind of thing. When we think, okay, this means that it's healthy, right? Because we all relate a term like gluten-free to being a step that you would take to becoming more healthy, right? But going gluten-free may only be useful to you if you have a gluten insensitivity. And there are other concerns with food other than gluten-free. Now, a lot of people do find that when they transition onto a gluten-free diet, that they feel better. But that's only one thing that they're changing, right? When you change onto a gluten-free diet, you actually shift a lot of the foods that you're eating. You get away from a lot of gluten-containing things like cakes, biscuits. So it's not really any wonder that you will feel an improvement. It's not necessarily just the fact that you're not eating gluten anymore that might make you feel better when you go gluten-free. Now, for example, a lot of the foods that are gluten-free products, so the ones that, you know, be in the biscuit aisle as gluten-free biscuits, being healthier than biscuits that aren't gluten-free. Now we could dispute that, right? Because the problem is a lot of the flours that they use that are gluten-free actually have a higher impact on your blood sugar as well, right? So when we're talking about blood sugar rising, a lot of the flours that they use that are gluten-free, rice flour, chickpea flour, all of those things will actually have bigger glucose impact on your system. So for people who are perhaps diabetic, having a gluten-free biscuit is probably going to be even more damaging than having a normal biscuit. So we have to be very careful about the way that we think about some of these nutritional and health claims. Now, some of the health claims that are out there are things that are sponsored by certain foundations, like the Healthy Heart Tick. Does everyone remember the Healthy Heart Tick? This is Heart Society approved. Simply because it does not contain a lot of saturated fat, which was one of the things that was identified as causing heart disease. But these days, the research is showing that actually it wasn't saturated fat at all that was causing heart disease. And actually, it might be that there is an excess of sugar and carbohydrate in the diet. Now, if you start looking at some of the foods that have the Healthy Heart Tick, things like Kellogg's Special K, a lot of cereals, these days that can be a real problem as well, right? Because now we know that excessive carbohydrate can actually cause heart disease as well. So something that was believed in the past can also be something that is found to be untrue in the future as well. So we need to be careful of these health claims as well. Now, obviously, the easiest way to avoid this minefield of marketing on packaging is to avoid food that comes in a package, right? Because that would make it so that you never have to deal with these marketing claims. But obviously, we can't get everything from whole food, and obviously, we do need a helping hand from a few processed foods every now and again. The less you can use, the better. However, let's have a little bit of a look at some problems with packaging. So here we go. These are some of the terms that are used. So you see the term a good source of. So that means that one serving of the food contains 10 to 19% of a daily value of a certain nutrient. So that could be protein, it could be a vitamin, it could be fiber, right? So there's a lot of these claims that can be used to do that. Now, the problem with that is that you could add some additional fiber, right? Sounds good, yeah? But when you look at a whole food that comes with fiber included in it, it comes with a whole set of other nutrients. And all of these nutrients work together to deliver that nutrition to your body. If you start sticking parts of foods together, we have no idea what kind of impact that has on the body or if it even benefits the body at all. So for example, right, we've covered it in other seminars before. Say an orange, right? We all know that an orange is a good source of vitamin C. However, what people don't know is that in the pith of the orange, there is a substance called a bioflavonoid, and bioflavonoids actually help deliver vitamin C into our bodies. It helps our bodies absorb the vitamin C. Without bioflavonoids, we can't absorb the amount of vitamin C as much as with them. So if you take the fiber away from say a grain or a vegetable, then you might be missing out on other nutrients that help deliver the benefits of that part to the body. So manufacturers can make processed foods, they can strip away all the nutrients and then they can add parts of nutrient back in so that they can make a health claim and make you feel good about what you're eating. So an excellent source of something has to have at least 20% of the daily value of that. So that's exactly what those mean. So we can also say high in or rich in. And then you have to obviously provide evidence for these claims, although not all of them are actually well regulated. Of course, different countries have different regulations, and a lot of this presentation really is for products that come out of the US because that's the main producer of a lot of these processed foods, or otherwise those foods are modeled on their US counterparts. But say for Europe, there's a different set of rules as well. And when we come to talk about serving sizes later, I'll have something to say about that. Okay, so the next health claim we're going to look at is low in. So low can refer to calories, total fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, or sugar. Low fat means 3 grams or less per serving. And low saturated fat, 1 gram or less per serving with no more than 15% of total calories coming from saturated fat. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts there as well. So low in sodium means 140 milligrams or less per serving. And very low sodium, 35 milligrams or less per serving. But this is where the serving game comes in, right? Now, in the States, it's not regulated how much a serving needs to be. You can make a serving anything from 1 gram up to 250 million grams if you want to. That's completely up to you. In Europe, and this is true for European products and also products that come from the UK and from Australia as well, I know, serving sizes must be stated on the package, but you always have to show the 100 gram amounts for every single product. So they'll say recommended serving size is 25 grams, but you have to show the nutrition for 100 grams, and that makes things more comparable. That makes products more comparable across the range. So in the States, this is not the case. So they can really play with that. So if you have a normal serving size of, say, a soup, and you put a lot of sodium in it because, you know, salt makes things really tasty, right? And you put a lot of sodium in it, then you can just say that the serving size is like a quarter of that, even though it would be pretty much what a normal person would eat anyway for a meal. But you can say that the serving size is a quarter, and then you can still make the claim that it is low or very low in sodium. So it's a big problem. You need to check your serving sizes, especially if the products come from the US. So, and when you're dealing with products from Europe, the UK, or Australia, then you need to look at the 100-gram serving, the 100-gram nutritional label, as opposed to what the recommended serving is. So that's very important to remember. Obviously, low cholesterol, 20 milligrams or less per serving, and low calorie, 40 calories or less per serving. Of course, this could also be manipulated by serving size. Okay, so the good old light, or LITE, light. Now, we immediately relate this to being low calorie, right? If you say it's the light version, then you think that it's low calorie, right? But here's the thing, you can also call something that is light in color light as well. And when it comes to actually claiming that something is light or light, so for foods with 50% or more of their calories coming from fat, versions of the same are produced with no more than half of its original fat content. So that is the rule for a light high fat product. Light high fat, that works really well, right? And then a food with less than 50% of its calories from fat has to have its number of calories reduced by at least a third, or its fat content by 50% compared to the original food product. So super simple, right, Cecile? That's about as clear as mud, isn't it? Okay. Now, the other thing that it could be is it could be a lighter texture, a lighter taste, or a lighter color. Light potato chips can be thinly sliced and lightly salted, but still have the same amount of fat and could be called light. Light olive oil has a milder, softer flavor, but still has the same fat as an olive oil. It's an oil, right? So, of course, our light beer can be lower in alcohol, but not necessarily lower in calories. And then light cheese as well. And then light versions of things like yogurt and milk and that kind of thing can still have a higher number of calories because of added carbohydrate that they've put into it to make it taste better, as compared to the full fat version. And we've spoken about that in previous seminars. So let's move on to the term free. So a fat-free food can contain fewer than half a gram of fat per serving. Sugar-free, fewer than half a gram of sugar per serving, and gluten-free, fewer than 20 parts per million of gluten. Now, we've got this beautiful packet of good old Jelly Belly jelly beans here. I see Cassie is smiling. This is the healthier version, right, Cass? You can feel good about eating this one. But it's got 28% fewer calories, right? Exactly. So it is definitely marketing sometimes that we are tricked by to make us feel better about eating foods that aren't necessarily that great for us as well. And of course, when you're in a situation where you want to have that food, you want to believe good things about bad foods, right? Because but we have to kind of make sure that as I've covered before in other seminars, sometimes having the lighter option in your mind, you still feel like you've shortchanged yourself. Sometimes I think it is much more satisfying to just treat yourself, when you do treat yourself, to the real version and not the light or sugar-free version, because in the end, you'll still feel like you did something healthier, so therefore you can have perhaps more or something else on top of that as well. So it's something that is a real consideration. You have to be careful about that. Now, in regards to the gluten-free part there, if you're a celiac, even 20 parts per million of gluten could affect you as well. So if you do have celiac disease or a gluten allergy, that is also something that doesn't sound very good, right? That it's gluten-free. It doesn't necessarily have to be gluten-free at all. Okay, then it comes to whole, because you know, we're very comfortable with whole foods and that kind of thing. But what about when it comes to whole grain? And some foods claim that they are a good source of whole grains. Now, remember our definition of a good source was 13 to 20%, right? So that means that you could say that something was a good source of whole grains, even though it still had almost all of it being from a processed or refined flour. And that's where you have to be careful with breads here. Who tries to eat brown bread because it's healthier? Oh wow, nobody eats brown bread here? Do you guys eat white bread, or you just not eat bread? You eat white bread. Okay. So brown bread was given this health halo, right? And at one point we were told that it wasn't good to eat white bread anymore, so we were told that brown bread. So a lot of white bread manufacturers decided to make a healthier version of white bread, telling you that it's a good source of healthy whole grains, which is what we were told to eat more of, right? So if you can call something a good source of healthy whole grains, and you only need to put 13% of that being whole grains in it, that means that pretty much you still have white bread with a little bit of brown flour in it, right? So what is it really? Is it really white bread? Is it really brown bread, or is it just white bread masquerading as brown bread? So this is also something that we need to think of. But there, you know, a lot of these terms, there's no regulation of this term. So there's no, like, companies are not made to use them. Things like all natural, right? So all natural has a definition, but if you put all in front of it, then you don't need to stick to that definition anymore. So these are all little tricks that are used to make us think that foods are healthier than what they actually are. Okay, so let me talk about all natural. This looks good, right? I mean, juice is good for you, yeah? Especially if it's 100% whole fruit, yeah? Look at this. It says all natural Snapple. And then it's definitely got fruit juice in it. But if we look down here, it contains only 10% juice. But the packaging, because it's green and it features a beautiful picture of the fruit that's in there. I mean, considering it's only got 10% juice in it, and then the rest is basically water and sugar, I think that's not very representative of what you're actually getting. Actually, in fact, you're getting something that is really just a soft drink with a tiny little bit of juice in it, right? Okay, let's have a look at the next one then. Oh, here's our beautiful heart healthy whole grains. instant oatmeal. Well, we all know that oatmeal is good for us, right? It's a good choice for breakfast. Yeah, absolutely. If you're having oats, which are 100% oats for breakfast, then it's good. But wait, no, this one has fruit and cream in it as well. And when we go to look at the ingredients, the second ingredient, and ingredients are always listed in order of how much of that ingredient is in. So the first ingredient will always be what's predominantly in it, and then the rest of the ingredients will be listed afterwards as to their quantity. So number one is whole grain rolled oats. Well, that's all good, right? That's pretty good. They contain some fiber, and soluble fiber has been shown to be protective of your heart health. But number two is sugar. I think these days we all know that we shouldn't be consuming so much sugar, and this is a breakfast food, right? So this will be your first meal of the day, and already you've got added sugar in there. And then the next thing that you can see is creaming agent, and the creaming agent is maltodextrin. Now, maltodextrin is also a carbohydrate, so it is in the same vein as sugar, but it's made from partially hydrogenated soybean oil. And when you see partially hydrogenated in a list of ingredients, that means that there is some trans fat in there. And trans fats have been banned from a lot of foods. They're no longer able to be used in Europe, the UK, and in Australia. However, in the States, they're still allowed to be under 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving. So that means that you can still get it. And whenever you see the words partially hydrogenated, be aware that you will be consuming some trans fat in there. The thing is, they don't have to declare it if it's under 0.5 gram per serving. Now, a serving of something like oats is maybe 25 grams, right? So probably if you're an active person, you probably want to have at least 50 grams of oats for breakfast for it to be substantial. So, then you're already getting a gram of trans fat, plus who knows how much sugar you're getting in there as well, right? So this is another claim that is totally busted, because we know now that sugar is one of the main contributors towards heart disease as well. So, all right, let's have a look at this one. Whole grain. Oh, our friend whole grain. We love our whole grain, right? So in this raisin bran, and bran's good, right? Because it's a good source of fiber. Now, do we remember what a good source was? It had to be 13 to 20% of your daily recommended intake. And this is one of those foods where they just add bran. And the problem with just adding bran is bran is just the outside of the actual grain. So you don't get the nutrients that are contained inside the grain, because inside the grain is where all the vitamins and the nutrients are. The fiber is just on the outside. So it's fiber that comes without any nutrients. And yes, whilst it might help move things through the system, you're not getting all of the extra benefits that you would from the whole food. So this is another one that is really quite high in carbohydrate as well. And it's not a whole food at all, because everything is put in separately. And a lot of these cereals as well, you'll find that they are actually they've added vitamins in, because they have stripped these foods of all kinds of nutrients. So they have to kind of add nutrients in so that they can make some of these health claims to make people buy them. Oh, this one is always my favorite, right? The good old Pop-Tarts, and you've probably seen this in one of my other seminars as well. This is a good source of 8 vitamins and minerals. If you go and have a look at the ingredients list, all of those vitamins and minerals have been added in mechanically afterwards, because all of the ingredients that they've used are so stripped of nutrients that they don't contain any anymore. So they had to add them back in there. And once again, it's that point that I made at the beginning, is that these vitamins don't just work by themselves. There are other substances that are required for absorption into the body. So the best way to get vitamins and minerals is in the form of whole foods, which is the way that they were designed to be delivered to your body. Reduced fat, okay? It must be good because it's been reduced in fat. So, you know, this is a totally okay thing to be giving your kids, right? Because it's milk, and milk is good, right? So here we can see the ingredients list here as well. Milk is the number 1, thank goodness for that. Number 2, of course, again, is sugar. And this is also considered a breakfast food, because whilst milk can definitely be part of a balanced diet, milk with sugar in it has a lot of problems. And probably, you know, when it comes to studying and learning of kids, it's been shown that sugar can be very problematic in causing lapses in concentration, especially when blood sugar levels drop. And of course, problems with hyperactivity when kids have too much sugar, because their systems are being revved over and over again. So we need to watch out for health claims. Yeah, it's talking about the fat, but something high in sugar is not going to be healthy for you either. Now, this one I love, right? So this is one of those chuck in the lunchbox packages, right? I can see Cass smiling because Cass probably deals with this every day at school. I love it. It says 100% real fruit juices in the center. And as you can see at the top, juice from concentrates, apple, grape, pear, peach, and pineapple, corn syrup, sugar, modified cornstarch, and then a little bit of fruit purees, which come in after sugar and corn syrup. And corn syrup, of course, is another form of sugar. So how can it be 100% fruit if it's got so much sugar in it as well, right? Really tricky packaging. And, you know, already as a parent, it's an absolute minefield to try and get the right things into your kids without pseudo-healthy claims being made, because honestly, you may as well just give them Skittles, right, compared to this. And then you're making that conscious decision because you want to make a better decision for your kids' health, and you have this marketing that says 100% real fruit juices, and it's not even true. It even says it straight on the label. So read your labels if you're going to use packaged foods. Or better yet, just use real fruit. Okay. Sour cream and chives, Betty Crocker mashed potato. Now, I have to say, I used to eat this kind of stuff when I was in university. Does anyone else want to admit to that one as well? I think it was a brand called Pam. Was it Pam, the mashed potato?
Mash.
Mash.
Well, in the UK, it was called Smash.
Smash. Okay, there you go. So I love this. It says made with 100% real mashed potatoes. Now, if we go over to the little nutrition panel over there, there's everything and mashed potatoes in there, okay? So if we have a little bit of a look, potatoes okay, I would expect mashed potato to have predominantly mashed potatoes in it. That's a good thing, right? Salt, maltodextrin, corn syrup. So, you know, you've got salt in there, you've got sugar in there in the form of maltodextrin and corn syrup, onion, mono and diglycerides, sour cream, and then the next one, which is my favorite ingredient of all times, monosodium glutamate. Does anyone remember what that is? Yeah, that is MSG. That is what Chinese food is really famous for, with giving you the headache afterwards. It's a flavor enhancer, and it tricks the body into wanting a lot more and into not feeling full when it's actually full. And then it's been linked to a lot of other health problems as well, including asthma. So this is something that you really don't want to have very much in your diet, because a lot of foods like tomatoes actually do contain monosodium glutamate naturally, because it is a naturally occurring substance. It's just that they concentrate it into a salt. I don't know if you guys have ever cruised through the supermarket here and you've seen, it's a bag, it's near the salts, it's called Ajinomoto. Have you guys seen it? It's right next to the salt section, and that's MSG. And it's the reason that a lot of Chinese food is so Moorish as well, because it's actually quite widely used there. So yeah, that's definitely something that you don't want to be getting in as well. I'm not sure how the preparation of this product is, but I think, you know, in the old days, it was just you had to add boiled water, right? That was it. And you stirred it up and then you had a bowl of mash there. Yeah. Okay. So serving sizes, we already went through this. So be aware of your serving sizes. Make sure that you know what a serving size is. Now, a lot of confectionery companies as well use this as a marketing tool. They do things called share sizes. But, you know, to be honest, who's going to share some of these things, right? So you'll have like 2 medium-sized Mars bars in one big long packet, and it's called share size. But, you know, to all intents and purposes, we're going to eat the whole thing anyway, right? See, I see Cecile has got a little smile on her face. Yeah, you know, right? It's never going to be shared. You know, the big packets of minstrels and stuff. Yeah, as if that's going to be shared, right? Because so you need to be careful of a lot of these things. There's also things like healthy ice cream, and I bought a healthy ice cream the other day. It's meant to be lower in carbs. And on the package, it says, because you don't have to feel guilty for eating the whole tub, because we do tend to buy those, you know, those tubs, those pints that look like that, and, you know, it tends to disappear, right? So it was saying only this many calories, and, you know, you shouldn't feel guilty about eating the whole tub. However, a serving size was like a quarter of the tub. So that was really misleading as well. So you think that you're only doing 90 calories, but actually you're taking in 360 calories. So it's really important to keep looking at that. Okay, now humane concerns. Of course, with the advent of veganism and militant veganism, humane concerns have been brought to the forefront. And I think for a lot of us, even if we do consume animal products, we do care about animals, and we don't want to see animals suffer unnecessarily. Does anyone want to share with me if they do free-range eggs? Who pays extra for free-range eggs? Yeah. Okay. Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go through some of these claims to know if you're actually that extra spend, because obviously, you these eggs are much, much, much more expensive. And also when it comes to chicken, buying meats, buying organic, buying grass-fed, all of that stuff I'm going to go over now. This is my favorite humane claim on meat. Farm fresh. Yeah, means absolutely nothing because pretty much all of this stuff comes from a farm anyway, right? And hopefully it's fresh because otherwise we're going to have problems. Okay, so here we have a fairly standard package of chicken breasts that you would pick up in your supermarket. And these are the little claims that we have. So what do they mean? So no added antibiotics. Good. Now, 50% of the world's antibiotics are actually used by the farming industry. And antibiotics are pretty much not only given to stop the animals from being sick or once they're sick from getting better. Antibiotics are actually used to fatten up animals. Because when you look at the next claim, no added hormones, actually using hormones in chickens is illegal. So no chicken has added hormones. The way that you get these big birds is by feeding them antibiotics. So if you do get something that is no added antibiotics, that's a good thing because then you know that they haven't been unnecessarily given antibiotics. Does it mean that they've never had antibiotics? No, it doesn't. It means that if the bird did get sick, then it could be given antibiotics, but you can't give it antibiotics to fatten it up. That's about as clear as mud as well, right? Okay, so no added hormones. I just covered that. You cannot give chickens hormones. So all chicken is hormone free. So that's good news, right? But it's another marketing ploy. It's one of those not GMO. You can also say that it's not GMO. There are no GMO chickens either. Okay, so no animal byproducts means that they haven't been fed dead animals. Okay, so for a lot of factory farms, they will actually take the animals that maybe didn't make it and grind it up and put it back in the feed. So that is definitely something that you want to look for. Humanely treated. Now, humanely treated, that feels good, right? That means that you know, somebody rocked the chicken to sleep every night and said, you know, good night, chicken, have a nice sleep. And then in the morning got the chicken up and let it out in this beautiful meadow of grass. Actually, there is no regulation for the word humanely treated. So that could just mean that they gave the chickens food or they gave the chickens water. So actually that claim means zero. And I will go into how you can make sure that you can get humanely treated animals after this. So do not despair yet. Raised cage free. That's good, right? At least they don't lock them up in little cages. Well, actually, meat chickens never get put in little cages. It's only egg chickens that get put in little cages because they don't want them to walk all over the eggs because they're in a confined space. So they put them in a cage so that the eggs drop through, right? So no factory chickens bred for meat are put in a cage ever. So cage free actually means nothing. And if we go back to the last slide, sorry, this slide, over to your right there, that is cage free. Okay, there's no cages there, right? So that's basically what your cage free can mean. And then the last claim is fed an all-vegetarian diet. There's only one problem with that. Chickens ain't vegetarians. Normally chickens walk outside and they scrabble in the dirt for insects and worms and stuff. So there's questions that could be raised about that as well, right? Are the chickens getting all of the nutrition that they need to be able to produce meat that is natural and the way that it was intended for our bodies? So that's definitely a bit of a concern there. So this is pretty much your standard tray of meat in the supermarket. So that's what some of those claims mean. Now, organic, let's just cover organic, because there's a huge debate always in our own minds, probably when we go to the supermarket shelf and we look at the price of the organic and the price of the conventional, right? It's like, yeah, really don't want to part with that much money for the organic. And who knows how well is it regulated? They're probably just saying it's organic and it's not organic, and this is always going to be the issue with organic, right? We can make ourselves think whatever we want. However, one consideration is if we consistently demand organic, the industry will move towards that type of farming more than conventional farming. The more that we buy conventional produce, the more that the industry will provide conventional produce. So, that is one consideration as well. So produce can be called organic if it's certified to have grown in soil that has no prohibited substances applied for 3 years prior to harvest. And prohibited substances include most synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. It doesn't mean that it is 100% fertilizer and pesticide free. It's just a smaller list of fertilizers and pesticides that they can choose from. It does mean that it is free of glyphosate, which is the number one problem at the moment, and the reason that we have genetically modified crops is because they've been genetically modified to withstand glyphosate. So it is definitely something that that is not used in organic farming. And for organic meat, regulations require that animals are raised in living conditions accommodating their natural behaviors, like the ability to graze on pasture, fed 100% organic feed, and not administered antibiotics or hormones for growth purposes. That doesn't mean that they are not administered antibiotics because they were sick, or because they needed to strengthen their system, right? But they're not allowed to give them it for growth purposes. And obviously, hormones are not allowed in chicken, but they are allowed in beef. So it depends on the animal as well. So, this is definitely something that if you're passionate or concerned about this, that you need to look into. And that's why it's always best to, if you possibly can, and maybe it's not possibly here, that you can do that, but you get to know your farmer and get to know the practices that they have so that you can know where your food comes from. Okay, so cage-free versus free-range. Here we go. So as I said before, cage-free means that the animals cannot be contained in any way and must be allowed to roam and forage freely over a large area of open land. Now, a large area of open land can be an enormous chicken barn like you saw before. And there are no stipulations as to how many chickens that land can hold either. So shoulder to shoulder is still cage free. Free range means the animals must have access to the outside. So if you were to open one little door in that enormous barn full of chickens, then you have already met the requirements for free range. Now, I don't know, are you guys aware of Morgan Spurlock? He did this documentary about McDonald's. He ate nothing but McDonald's for a year. Do you guys remember that? Well, he's made another documentary now about chickens, about chicken restaurants. And he made a chicken restaurant where he addresses all of these claims. And he wants his chicken to meet all of the required industry standards. So basically what he did was he opened one door of his chicken barn with the high density chickens, and he put just a little bit of gauze around the outside, you know, like that chicken wire, so that there was a semicircle outside the door, and that meant that they actually met the requirements for free range. So what's the point, right? So what's the point in spending the extra money on free range? Well, don't worry, not all is lost. Not all is lost. Okay, let me just quickly touch on grass-fed beef versus grain-fed beef, because this is a huge health buzzword as well. So what is the difference? Okay, so grass-fed means that they've been fed grass for their entire life up to slaughter. Grain-fed means that they started off on grass, but for the last few months of their lives, they were put on a feedlot and they were fed grain. And the reason that they were fed grain is so it fattens them up really quickly, because of the high amount of carbohydrate. As we know, that increases the amount of fat that's contained in their bodies. It does exactly the same thing to humans as well. And then this is the time that they feed them lots of antibiotics and hormones, so that they really put on a lot of bulk in the last few months of their lives before they're slaughtered and taken to market. So what is the difference? Well, grass is the natural food of cows. So when you feed cows grass, then you will end up with a nutrient profile which suits the way that we have consumed this type of meat for hundreds of thousands of years, right? When you feed them grains, which are high in omega-6 fatty acids, you will change the structure and the nutrient profile of the beef so that it is not meant for not the way that we've consumed it for hundreds of thousands of years. And this is the big concern at the moment, because we're completely changing the nutrient profile of meats by feeding animals the wrong food. That's not what they were meant to eat. It's the same with salmon, you know, wild salmon versus farm salmon. Farm salmon as well is fed grain. And grain is not what you find in the sea, right? That's not what they're supposed to eat. So therefore, their food, what you are, what you eat, right? So they become high in whatever that feed is. So that means that they become high in omega-6 fatty acids, which has been shown to cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So eating animals that consume their natural food is the best way to maintain the nutrient profile of that meat, and that's grass-fed versus grain-fed. Incidentally, that one can't be messed with. If it's grass-fed, then it's grass-fed. If it's grain-fed, then it should say that on the packaging as well. And then you can look at meat, because this was a concern the other day. We found out that all cattle in New Zealand is grass-fed. It is illegal there to feed cattle grain. So if you're looking for a conventionally packed beef, then New Zealand beef and also butter and all of those things, even though they might not say grass-fed, they are grass-fed, which is good news. Okay, so here is the point about humane. So these 3 stickers are companies that actually go out and check and license producers to make sure that they are handling animals in a humane way up to what we would expect. So they're definitely the ones that the RSPCA and their American counterpart, they have approved these 3 stamps. So if you can find one of these 3 stamps on the product, then you know that the animals have been somewhat humanely treated. Okay, and that is the end of my presentation. So guys, I want to open up the floor to some questions if you guys have any questions. Ooh, it's very quiet. Let me stop sharing. There we go. Okay.
Thanks, Mim. I'm not sure if I have any questions.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as it was clear.
Yep. It still baffles me that like food colorings and stuff. You're looking at, I can't remember. It was the gums or something, or the one that said 100% fruit. I mean, it had like blue 1 and red 40, whatever it was, on it, and I'm like going, oh my god, you know, that's some of those things still freak me out. And it's what's the yellow one that's in medicine?
Something yellow,
yeah. I can't remember what it's called. But I remember Jake getting given it as an antibiotics, you know, the banana flavored stuff, amoxicillin that they give the kids. You know, and he got given it when he was younger, and he literally just was wired to the moon. And I went in and challenged the doctor, and his face was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, give him something that doesn't have yellow in it, because he just literally reacts so badly, and he did to anything that was yellow flavored. And even when he got given it again when he was, I think he must have been about 12 or something, because he had something wrong with his tooth. And I had to go at Tony because he took him to the dentist. And I was like, why has he got that? He's like, oh, it'll be fine. It was 10 years ago he last had it. And he just was wired. He was just like, he almost turned into it wasn't a hyperactive, he went into automatic, just this complete, like a speed effect is how he responded to it. So we had a 4-hour car journey, and he spoke the whole time in the car journey, like this. Like, oh, look at this. It's like this constantly.
Wow.
You know? Yeah. And I was like, again, please don't give my child this. Please make a note of it. He can't have it. You know? But they were like, it was baffling how the doctors and the medical profession look at you as if you're stupid. What do you mean your child's reacting to this medicine? This is what they need to take to make them better. I was like, yeah, but it's not helping with his behavior.
Absolutely. And I think, that's these days there's much more of a consciousness about things like that, because, allergies is much more widely accepted. We've talked about this on numerous occasions that allergies are on the rise, and that there are allergic reactions to things that we'd never heard of back in the day, right? I mean, nut-free at school definitely wasn't nut-free at my school. And I think it started with peanut-free, and now it's everything free.
Any nut. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when it comes to allergies and reactions, we're much more educated about it these days. And probably if you did go to a doctor now, but we expect doctors to know everything about nutrition. However, doctors get no nutritional education, maybe just the tiniest little bit. So you can't really expect them to know a lot of these things either. And nutritional science is so in its infancy. We really don't know anything about anything compared to the way that we know things in the medical. When it comes to body function, we know a lot, but we don't know a lot in regards to nutrition, because we have this way of wanting to chop everything down into a singular substance. However, foods don't work like that. foods are a symbiotic relationship between all of these different nutrients, right? And every different percentage makes a difference to the organism that is ingesting it. So, you know, it's really just in its infancy, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with nutritional science as well. You know, but it's just such a mess because it takes a long time for belief systems to catch up as well. I mean, look how long the low fat thing has gone on for, and I still speak to people that are just like, yeah, you've got to have the low fat, you know, that's been disproven already 20 years ago. There were studies showing that saturated fat actually wasn't the culprit. However, I still see nutritionists get on TV and say, yeah, it's low in saturated fats, you know, even though that is already old news now. But these things continue and they keep on carrying on. So it is so difficult to know exactly what is right. And that's why everyone's confused. You know, add money making to that, and it really just does become a minefield. That's why, you know, the safest way to go is to try and consume foods that are naturally grown and that don't have packaging. You know, it really should be 80 to 90% of what you consume. And yeah, I mean, the body can tolerate a lot, right? We're adaptable. Our bodies can really take a hammering. So if 10% is not that good, then it's not really much of a problem. Our bodies are made to filter out a lot of stuff. But the thing is, if you keep hammering it, and there's people that literally eat processed food all the time and don't eat anything but processed food, that's when things get really bad. That's when things get really, really bad. So, yeah. Okay, well, let the party begin. That's it. What have you got?
She got some tunes. You're on silent. We can't hear you. You've put your mic on.
Oh, look. Bless him. You guys should definitely check out like Willie's ride. He's so sweet. He's such a sweetie. Yeah, and he has great music too. So if you ever get the chance to do one of his rides, I highly recommend the one that he taught last week, which was all classical music, and he turned up in a little conductor's cycling jersey. It was so
It was great. He's playing Queen at the moment. Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh yeah. Nice.
All right then, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for coming tonight. It was wonderful to see you all, and I hope to see you all again soon. I'm sure I will pick up with you guys in the near future. So have a wonderful evening, everyone, and thanks for coming. And you can always reach out to me personally on social media if you have further questions that you didn't want to hear today. So guys, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
have a good evening.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Hey guys.
Bye.